Welcome to our deep dive today. We're tackling a topic that's sure to spark some strong opinions. Animal testing in cosmetics.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a hot button issue.
We'll be looking at excerpts from this 73 animal testing US.pdf file.
Sounds like some official document.
It seems to be like a lesson plan or something. But don't worry, we're not here to give you homework.
Definitely not.
We just want to, really get into the heart of this complex subject.
Yeah, explore it from different angles.
Exactly. So let's rewind the clock a bit.
Okay.
Back to 2009, when the EU dropped this bombshell ban on animal testing for cosmetics.
Oh yeah, that was a huge moment.
What kind of impact did that actually have on the industry?
It was a game changer.
Yeah.
Seriously. It shook things up globally. And this wasn't like a close vote or anything. The document says it passed with an overwhelming majority. Shows you how much public opinion had shifted on this.
Right.
Companies, they had to scramble, find new ways to prove their products were safe. And remember, this ban, it wasn't just about mascara and lipstick. It covered everything. Toothpaste, shampoo, you name it.
Basically, anything you might find in a bathroom cabinet.
Exactly.
Before we go any further, can you paint a picture for us?
Okay.
Like, what did animal testing in cosmetics actually look like before this ban?
Okay, so picture this. Pre-ban EU, something like 38,000 animals were used annually for cosmetic testing.
Wow.
Yeah. Tests range from skin penetration, figuring out how deep a product goes into your skin,
Oh,
to eye irritation tests. Ugh.
those eye irritation tests, I think those are the ones that have always kind of bothered me the most. What did those entail?
Basically, they would drip substances into the eyes of albino rabbits, and then they'd check for irritation. And there were also skin irritation tests on rabbits, guinea pigs, where they apply substances to their shaved skin, and then oral toxicity tests.
Yeah.
Force-feeding ingredients to animals to see how toxic they were.
It's pretty grim stuff. It really makes you think. But the document does point out that there are arguments in favor of animal testing as well.
Right.
What are some of the key points raised by the industry?
So the cosmetics industry has always said, for a long time, that animal testing was the most effective way to make sure things were safe for consumers.
Right. That makes sense.
They really pushed that it's necessary to ID potentially harmful substances, especially carcinogens.
The ones that can cause cancer.
Exactly, and allergens too. And their argument gets a bit trickier when you think about the fact they make things like sunscreen, toothpaste, These aren't just like frivolous beauty products. They have a real impact on our health.
It's not just lipstick, yeah.
Right.
So that leads to the ethical question. Is there ever a time where animal testing is justified?
Right. That is the dilemma, isn't it? The document actually has this quote from the philosopher Jeremy Bentham. The question is not, can they reason? Nor can they talk, but can they suffer?
Wow, that's powerful.
It really gets to the core of it all.
It does. Even if it's to protect people, is it ever okay to make an animal suffer?
Right.
And the document doesn't try to shy away from how complicated it is.
Yeah.
It throws out these two debate topics.
Okay.
Should companies have the right to test all cosmetics on animals?
Okay, yeah.
Or should there be an exception made for products that are more health-related?
Interesting.
So these questions bring up even more nuances, right? Like,
Okay.
can you ever really justify animal testing, even if it stops people from getting hurt? What about things that are just purely for looks?
Right.
Where do you draw the line?
Exactly.
It seems like the EU ban was a big step, putting animal welfare first,
For sure.
but it also opened up a whole new set of questions.
Oh, absolutely. It didn't get rid of the need for safety testing.
Of course not.
It just changed the focus
Right.
to finding other ways to do it. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, so let's dive into that more in the next part of this deep dive. We'll see how safety testing has evolved and explore what a future without animal testing in cosmetics might actually look like.
Can't wait.
So welcome back to our deep dive into animal testing in cosmetics. Last time we left off talking about the EU ban, which was a pretty major turning point.
It was.
But obviously, we still need ways to make sure cosmetics are safe.
Of course. Yeah.
So what happened after the ban? How did the industry try to fill that void?
It really kicked off a search for alternatives, like a race to innovate, Researchers and scientists, they started digging into all these different approaches.
Okay.
And each one came with its own pros and cons, naturally.
I've heard a lot of buzz about in vitro testing.
Yeah.
Is that like one of the main contenders? What does that even mean?
So in vitro literally means in glass.
Okay.
So it happens outside of a living being.
Okay.
They usually use human cells or tissues that are grown in a lab,
Oh, interesting.
kind of like creating a mini model of human biology.
Okay.
And they test the products on that.
So instead of testing on a live rabbit, you're testing on a dish of like skin cells.
Exactly.
It sounds way more ethical for sure.
Oh, for sure.
But is it really as reliable?
That's the big question. In vitro is great for checking how toxic each ingredient is on its own.
Okay.
But it can be tricky to replicate how those ingredients actually work together, in a whole living, breathing person.
Right, because things change when they're combined.
Exactly. Think of it this way, right? Each individual ingredient might act differently when it's mixed with the others to make the final product.
That's a good point. So it's a step forward, but it's not perfect. What other things are being explored?
Well, there's in silico modeling, which is super interesting. It uses computer simulations to predict how chemicals will affect us.
In silico modeling,
Yeah.
that sounds futuristic.
A little bit, right.
How does that even work?
So basically, it relies on these crazy complex algorithms and massive databases.
Okay.
They pull together tons of info about chemical structures and how they affect our bodies. And then scientists use that data to create these virtual models.
Oh, wow.
It simulates how a chemical might interact with human cells
Wow.
and predicts if it could cause any harm. Remember when we were talking about carcinogens earlier?
Yeah.
In silico can actually help identify those in cosmetics without needing any animal testing.
So computers can potentially help us create safer cosmetics without harming animals.
Exactly.
That's pretty amazing. But I'm guessing there are some downsides to this tech too, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's not a silver bullet.
Okay.
In silico is only as good as the data it's using, and we're still learning so much about how the human body works. It's a powerful tool,
Yeah.
but it's not quite a complete replacement for real-world testing yet.
Right. It seems like it's pretty tough to find one perfect alternative to replace animal testing altogether.
It is.
So what does the future hold for cosmetic safety testing? What's it going to look like?
Well, it's probably going to involve a mix of all these different methods. Like, think of it as a toolbox.
Okay.
You got in vitro testing, in silico modeling, and all these other new technologies coming up.
Right.
And they'll all work together to build this complete picture of how safe a product really is.
So each one kind of backs up the others.
Yeah, they can validate and strengthen each other's findings.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not about finding like a single, magic solution.
Right.
It's about using all these different tools to keep people safe and protect animals at the same time.
Exactly.
Where do consumers fit into all of this? What role do we play?
Consumers have a huge role.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think their decisions, what they choose to buy, and the pressure they put on companies, that's what can really drive change.
Right.
By choosing to support companies that are truly cruelty-free, consumers can really push for the development and adoption of these new testing methods.
So it's not just about scientists and labs, it's everyone working together.
It is, yeah.
What are some things that consumers can actually do to make a difference?
Yeah.
How do we know which companies are really ethical?
That's a great question. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, perfect.
We'll give you the info and resources you need to figure out this whole world of cruelty-free cosmetics
Awesome.
and make choices you feel good about.
Welcome back to our deep dive, everyone. So in the last two parts, we've really dug into animal testing in cosmetics, the good, the bad, and the pretty ugly.
Definitely some heavy stuff.
But now I want to focus on us. What can we as consumers actually do to support a cruelty-free future for cosmetics?
Right, like where do we even start?
Exactly.
Well, the good news is that every time you buy something, you're making a choice. And by picking cruelty-free products, you send a message loud and clear to these companies.
Okay, but cruelty-free, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
How do we know it actually means anything? Are there like industry standards or certifications that we can look for?
You're right to be skeptical. Honestly, not every cruelty-free claim is legit. Some companies, they might slap that label on, even if their ingredients were tested on animals, somewhere along the line.
Oh, wow.
That's why it's so important to check for certifications from groups that really know their stuff.
So which organizations should we be looking for?
Two of the best, the ones that are super strict, are the Leaping Bunny program and PETA's Beauty Without Bunnies. They have tough rules. Companies got to show them all the paperwork to prove they're meeting the standards.
So it's like a seal of approval, right? You see that bunny logo, you know the company's gone the extra mile to be cruelty-free.
Exactly. Means they've done their homework.
Okay, so looking for those certifications is a good starting point. What else should consumers consider when they're shopping for cosmetics?
Look for brands that are upfront about their ingredients and where they get them from. Like, are they willing to tell you their whole process?
Right.
How things are made, who they work with, do their suppliers have the same ethical and sustainable practices?
So it's about more than just avoiding animal testing, right?
It is.
It's about making ethical choices across the board.
Exactly. It's got to line up with your values.
Yeah.
Like when you spend your money, you're investing in the future you want to see. And when you support those cruelty-free companies, you're telling the whole industry, hey, we want change.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening. It's amazing to see how this whole issue has evolved
It has.
and how much progress has been made.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, don't get discouraged. Real change takes time.
It does.
It takes us being aware, being kind, and being willing to act. The move towards a cruelty-free world is gaining traction.
It is.
And each of us, we have the power to contribute.
That's true.
When we're informed consumers, we can help build a future where beauty doesn't come at the expense of animal suffering.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a truly insightful journey, and I hope everyone listening feels empowered to make informed choices. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of animal testing and cosmetics.